You've seen the claims. This penny is worth $1 million. This quarter can make you rich overnight. But is it true? The truth is, most of it is completely fake. Exaggerated prices, misleading hype. That's what we're here to expose. Welcome to Rare Coin Collecting.
Most people think of 1972 pennies and immediately remember the famous Philadelphia double die obverse, one of the most iconic errors of all time. But the Denver Mint also struck an enormous number of pennies. In 1972, and while it doesn't share the fame of the Philly variety, the 1972 D, Lincoln cent, still has a fascinating story and some surprisingly valuable angles collectors should know. The year 1972 was part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which had been running since 1959. At this point, pennies were still made of a bronze composition, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. Unlike the later zinc coins of the 1980s and beyond, these bronze cents had durability and a distinctive reddish tone collectors love. The Denver Mint was the workhorse of U.S. coin production in the 1970s. In 1972 alone, it struck over 2.6 billion Lincoln cents. Yes, billions with a B. That huge number makes the coin seem common, and in worn circulated grades it is. You'll find them in change all the time. But when you start looking at high-grade examples or varieties, the story changes dramatically. Let's start with varieties. The Denver issues don't have a bold double die obverse like Philadelphia, but several minor double dies exist. They are mostly on the obverse, affecting the date or liberty, though they are far less dramatic than the Philly version. Still, specialists hunt them, and coins certified with recognized varieties can bring premiums. What makes the 1972 D really interesting is condition rarity. With billions made, the Mint wasn't focused on perfect strikes. Most 1972 D cents show weak details on Lincoln's hair and the memorial, and many have contact marks from high-speed minting. That's why superb uncirculated examples, graded MS67 or higher, are extremely rare. Let's talk numbers. An ordinary circulated 1972 D is worth only face value. In Mint State 63 red, it's about 5s, and MS65 red might bring $20 to $30. But the real jump comes at the top end. At MS67 red, prices can hit $600, $1,000, and the auction record is astonishing. A PCGS MS67 Plus red 1972 D sold for $4,994. In 2016, that's nearly $5,000 for a modern penny that technically exists in the billions. This is the concept collectors call a condition rarity. It isn't rare because of mintage. It's rare because hardly any survive in flawless condition, and when you add in the natural toning and spotting issues common to copper coins, finding one with blazing original red color is even harder. Now let's discuss grading. Collectors break down 1972 D cents into brown, BN, red-brown RB, and full red RD designations. Red examples are by far the most desirable. Over time, copper naturally darkens. So many coins that started life bright red are now brown. That's why coins in holders graded as red, especially MS666 and above, are worth serious money. If you're a buyer, you need to be cautious. Many raw coins on eBay or flea markets are described as MS67 or GEM, but unless they're certified by PCGS or NGC, the grades are often inflated. Stick to trusted grading companies when you're spending hundreds or thousands. If you're a seller, your best bet is submitting truly clean, lustrous coins to PCGS or NGC. Only then will collectors pay premium money. A raw coin in a flip, even if beautiful, just won't bring the same price. As for cleaning, and this is where many beginners ruin value, the 1972 D, being copper, shows cleaning instantly. Harsh cleaning leaves bright, unnatural surfaces or visible hairlines. Even a single wipe with a cloth can destroy its value. Collectors would rather own a natural brown cent than a shiny, damaged red one. Now let's not forget roll hunting and bulk searching. Because 1972 D had such a huge mintage, rolls and bags are still out there. Many collectors in the 1970s and 1980s saved original rolls, and if you can find unsearched ones, they can be a goldmine for high-grade coins. A single MS67 red could turn a $2 roll into thousands of dollars. To recap, the 1972 D, Lincoln cent, may not have the headline-grabbing double die of its Philadelphia cousin, but it's a sleeper. With billions struck, most are common, but top-grade examples are extremely scarce. Regular circulated coins are worth a penny. Mint state coins are worth a few dollars. But at the very highest levels, these can reach $5,000 at auction. Add in some minor double-die varieties and condition rarity, and you've got a modern coin worth paying attention to. So the next time you see a 1972 deep penny in your change, don't dismiss it. If it's clean, bright red, and well struck, you may just be looking at a coin that could bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars in the right market. That's what makes coin collecting exciting. Even the most ordinary-looking cents can carry extraordinary stories and value. When we think of valuable Lincoln cents, our minds often go to older classics, like the 1909's VDB or dramatic double dies like 1955. But the 1988 penny, a coin most people wouldn't give a second glance, actually has some surprises. It's one of those modern coins that proves even ordinary change can hide treasure. Let's start with the basics. The 1988 cent belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Series, which ran from 1959 to 2008. By 1988, the Mint was still producing billions of these coins every year. In fact, over 11 billion pennies were struck in 1988 across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. That makes it one of the most common dates of the entire Memorial Series. Most of these coins were struck in the standard composition of the time: a copper-plated zinc plancher, 97.5% zinc with a thin 2.5% copper plating. This composition had replaced the earlier bronze alloy in 1982. And that change matters, because zinc cents are far more fragile. They corrode, blister, and spot more easily, which affects their collectability and grading potential. Now, what makes the 1988 cent interesting isn't its mintage. It's the varieties and errors, and the standout is the famous 1988 reverse of 1989 variety. Here's what happened. In 1989, the Mint slightly modified the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial, most noticeably in the shape of the designer's initials FG for Frank Gasparro. A small number of 1988 cents were struck using the new reverse design by mistake. These coins are called 1988, reverse of 1989 cents. Collectors hunt this variety because it's a transitional design error, and it's much scarcer than a normal 1988 cent. In top grades, these can fetch hundreds of dollars. For example, PCGS has certified MS67RD, examples of the 1988 reverse of 1989 at auction bringing $2 to $3,000. Even circulated, examples can be worth $50 to $100. Other errors also exist, including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die breaks. These errors can push values up dramatically depending on severity. A dramatic off-center 1988 cent with clear date and mint mark could sell for several $100s. But what about regular 1988 cents? In circulated condition, they're usually only worth face value. But in mint state grades, especially full red designations, there's value. An MS65 red might sell for $10, $20, while MS67 red examples can sell for hundreds. The record price for a regular 1988 Lincoln cent is impressive. A PCGS MS68 red brought $2,020 at auction in 2019. That's nearly $3,000 for a coin most people would toss in a jar. This is a perfect example of what we call a condition rarity. With billions minted, almost none are rare in a general sense. But surviving examples in pristine, gem condition are incredibly hard to find, especially with zinc's natural weakness. If you're a buyer, you should know that many raw coins on eBay or in rolls are overgraded. People call coins MS67 when they're really MS64. That's why certification by PCGS or NGC is key if you're paying serious money. If you're hunting for the reverse of 1989 variety, learn to spot the subtle FG detail differences, so you don't miss it in circulation or dealer boxes. If you're a seller, grading is your best friend. A raw 1988 cent in high grade might only bring a few dollars, but in a PCGS holder at MS67 red, it could fetch hundreds. The same goes for the reverse of 1989 variety. Certified examples get far more attention and higher bids. As for cleaning, it's an absolute no. Zinc coins are the easiest to damage. The thin copper plating can be stripped or scratched with the slightest abrasion. And once the zinc core is exposed, corrosion sets in quickly. Collectors always prefer original surfaces, even if they're spotted or toned. Roll hunting can still pay off here. Because billions were minted, 1988 rolls are common, but finding one that hasn't been picked over could be profitable. Imagine spotting a reverse of 1989 or a high-grade red cent in a $2 roll. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching. So let's pull it all together. The 1988 Lincoln cent is usually just pocket change. But the special, reverse of 1989 variety turns it into a prize worth hundreds or even thousands in top condition. Regular cents in superb gem grades can also reach over $2,800 at auction. Add in errors and condition rarity, and suddenly this modern coin isn't boring at all. It's a sleeper collectible. The takeaway is simple. Don't overlook your 1980s pennies. With a sharp eye, a little patience, and some knowledge about varieties, you could find a small cent that carries a very big value. When you think of 1989, pennies probably don't come to mind as exciting collectibles. Billions were minted, most are still floating around in circulation, and at first glance they seem like pocket change. But as every coin collector knows, even modern issues can hold secrets, and the 1989 D Lincoln cent is a great example of that. The 1989 D comes from the Denver Mint, which struck over 5.3 billion pennies that year. That's an enormous number, even by modern standards. These coins belong to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which ran from 1959 to 2008. By 1989, the Mint had already switched to the zinc composition introduced in 1982, 97.5%, zinc with a thin copper plating of 2.5%. This change was made to save money, but it introduced a whole new set of problems for collectors. Zinc cents blister, spot, and corrode far more easily than the old bronze cents, making pristine examples extremely tough to find. What makes 1989 interesting is that this year marked the official introduction of the new reverse design for the memorial, with slightly revised initials FG for Frank Gasparo. This replaced the older reverse used from 1959 through 1988. While most 1989 cents show the correct reverse, there are still transitional discussions around the 1988 reverse of 1989 error we covered earlier. By 1989, the new design was in full swing, so for collectors, the challenge is not transitional design, but rather condition and striking quality. Now let's talk about values. In circulation, the 1989 D cent is worth just 1 cent. Even in lightly circulated grades, you won't get much more. But in mint state, things change. A gem quality red coin in MS65 might sell for $5 to $10, and MS66 reds can go for $20, $40. But once you climb into MS67 territory, the rarity spikes. The record price for a 1989 D Lincoln cent is truly shocking. A PCGS MS67 Plus red example sold for $7,131 at auction. That's nearly $8,000 for a modern penny. Why so high? Because out of billions minted, very few survive in absolutely flawless condition. Even tiny spots, faint scratches, or dull color knock these down. Zinc cents rarely stay perfect. That's why collectors prize superb full red examples with blazing original luster. What about errors and varieties? Yes, the 1989 D has some great ones. Off-center strikes are popular, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible. A 50% off-center 1989 D could bring $200 or more. Clipped planchets die cracks, and struck-through errors are also collectible, with values ranging from $20 to several hundred depending on severity. Another hot market is for dramatic die breaks, sometimes called cuds, which can turn an ordinary penny into a $50 or $100 collectible. For collectors interested in buying or selling, here are some tips. If you're a buyer, raw coins online can be risky. Sellers often exaggerate the grade. That MS67 they claim is probably an MS64 or MS65. The smart move is to stick with certified examples from PCGS or NGC if you're paying premium prices. If you're a seller, sending your top quality 1989 D cents to be graded can pay off big. A raw coin might only fetch $10, but in a PCGS MS67 red holder it could sell for hundreds or even thousands. Another tip is about cleaning. Simply don't zinc. Scents are extremely sensitive. The thin copper plating scratches, streaks, or peels away if you try to polish it. Once the zinc core is exposed, corrosion sets in fast. Collectors always prefer original, untouched surfaces, even with minor spots, over a shiny but damaged, cleaned coin. A good way to hunt for these gems is through roll searching. Bank-wrapped rolls of 1989 D cents are still around, and even circulated rolls might yield an MS-65 or higher if you're lucky. The chance of finding an MS-67 is slim, but that's the thrill of the hunt. Imagine pulling an $8,000 coin from a 50-cent roll. It's happened before, and that's why collectors keep searching. So let's wrap it up. The 1989 D Lincoln cent is one of the most common coins of the Memorial series, with over 5 billion struck. In circulation, it's just a penny, but in gem condition, especially certified MS-67 plus red, it can bring jaw-dropping prices of nearly $8,000 at auction. Add in dramatic mint errors like off-center strikes or clipped planchets, and you've got plenty of reasons not to ignore this modern issue. The lesson here is clear: never underestimate modern pennies. With the right eye, patience, and knowledge of varieties and grades, you can turn a coin worth 1 cent into a piece worth thousands. When most collectors think of valuable Lincoln cents, they picture classic rarities like the 1909 VDB or the 1955 double die, but sometimes even a coin as common looking as the 1971 D penny can surprise you. Billions were made, yet in top condition or with the right error, they can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The 1971 D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, with a total mintage of over 2.9 billion coins. That's an enormous number, and it made this penny one of the most common issues of the Lincoln Memorial series. These coins were composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the traditional bronze alloy that collectors love, since this was before the switch to zinc. In 1982, at 311 grams, these coins still had intrinsic copper value, and many were hoarded when copper prices began to rise. Historically, 1971 was a transitional time for U.S. coinage. The Mint was experimenting with different striking techniques and struggling with die longevity. As a result, coins from this era often show weak strikes, die wear, and quality control issues. For collectors, this means finding a sharp, clean, fully red 1971 D cent in high mint state grades is far tougher than you might imagine. So let's talk about values. In circulation, of course, it's only worth 1 cent. In mint state, however, it gets more interesting. At MS-65 red, a 1971 D might sell for $15 to $25. At MS-66 red, prices climb into the $75–$100 range. But at MS-67 red, rarity explodes. Only a handful of flawless examples exist. And here's the jaw-dropper. A PCGS MS-67 red 1971 D sold for $5,875 at auction. That's nearly $6,000 for a coin most people overlook. Why? Because billions were made, but almost none survive without spots, blemishes, or strike issues. Now let's get into errors and varieties, which make the 1971 D even more exciting. One of the most sought after is the 1971 D doubled die obverse. Strong doubling can be seen on the date and the word Liberty. These aren't as dramatic as the 1955 doubled die, but they are collectible and can bring $100, $500 depending on grade. Other errors include off-center strikes, which if the date and mint mark are visible, can sell for $200, $100. Clipped planchets are also popular, often selling for $50, $150, struck through errors, where grease or debris left impressions on the coin, can range from 20 to several hundred, depending on how dramatic the effect is. For collectors, the grading and color designation of a 1971 D cent matters enormously. Coins are categorized as brown, BN, red-brown, RB, or red RD. Red coins with full original copper luster are the most valuable by far. Most coins from this year toned down over time, turning brown or losing their brilliance. That's why an original red MS-67 is a trophy piece worth thousands. If you're thinking of buying one, the key is patience. Raw coins are everywhere, but true gems are scarce. Only purchase uncertified coins if you have a sharp grading eye. For top-end examples, stick with PCGS or NGC certified slabs, as these carry the most trust and highest resale value. If you're selling, the strategy is different. Don't just dump rolls of 1971 D cents into circulation. Instead, search carefully for errors and high-grade examples. Submitting your finest coins for grading can multiply their value. That $5 coin in a flip could be a $500 coin in a slab if it grades MS66 or higher. Now a word on cleaning. Copper coins are especially vulnerable. Cleaning a 1971 D cent will ruin it instantly. The surface is scratched, the color turns unnatural, and graders will mark it as details only, killing the value. Collectors pay top dollar for originality, even if it means a coin has a small spot or two. Never attempt to polish or dip copper coins. The best way to find high-grade 1971 D cents is through roll hunting or old bank bags. Collectors in the 1970s often set aside rolls, and unopened ones still surface at shows and auctions. Searching them can yield MS65 or better coins, and sometimes even errors. So to sum it up, the 1971 D Lincoln cent may seem like an ordinary coin with a mintage of nearly 3 billion. But in the right condition, it's far from ordinary. In circulation, it's worth face value. In mint state red, it's worth $2,100, and in MS67 red, it is sold for nearly $6,000. Add in double dyes, off-center strikes, and other errors, and this humble penny can become a major collectible. The lesson here is clear: never underestimate a common date. With billions struck, most people think of the 1971 D as pocket change, but for the dedicated collector who knows how to spot rarity and grade and variety, it's a coin that proves the thrill of treasure hunting is alive and well in modern numismatics. The year 1982 marked a turning point in U.S. coinage history. For over 70 years, Lincoln cents had been struck in bronze, an alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But by the early 1980s, rising copper prices meant that it actually cost more than 1 cent to produce a penny. In response, the mint made the controversial decision to change the composition mid-year. Starting in 1982, cents would be made of 99.2% zinc with a thin 0.8% copper plating. They weighed only 2.5 grams, compared to the older bronze cents, which weighed 3.11 grams. This change created a unique situation. Both bronze and zinc pennies were struck in 1982. Add in two different mints, Philadelphia and Denver, plus small date and large date design varieties, and suddenly collectors have 7 major types of 1982 cents to chase. 1982 large date copper, 1982 small date copper, 1982 D large date copper, 1982 D small date copper, 1982 large date zinc, 1982 small date zinc, 1982 D large date zinc. That's not even counting errors and transitional oddities, which we'll get into shortly. The mintage totals for 1982 were massive. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 10.7 billion cents, while the Denver Mint struck about 6 billion. This makes 1982 one of the highest mintage years in U.S. coin history. But despite those billions, certain varieties and high-grade examples can be extremely valuable. So let's talk about values. A circulated 1982 penny, whether bronze or zinc, is usually only worth face value. But collectors are especially interested in uncirculated red examples and error varieties. The 1982 small date copper from Philadelphia is one of the key finds. Only a fraction were struck, and identifying them requires a sharp eye. In MS65 red, they can bring $200–500. In higher grades, values shoot up dramatically. Then there's the legendary 1982 D small date copper. This coin shouldn't even exist. The Denver Mint was only supposed to strike zinc small dates, but a few copper planchets slipped through. These transitional errors are ultra rare. Only a handful are confirmed, and one sold for $18,800 at heritage auctions. For a penny, that's an incredible return. Even the more common varieties can bring big money at the very top. For example, PCGS MS69 red, 1982 D large date zinc, sold for nearly $3,000. And high grade copper small dates often fetch hundreds of dollars at auction. Now about errors, 1982 is full of them. Some of the most collectible include double dyes on the obverse, where Liberty, the date, or In God We Trust show doubling. These can bring $50 to $500. Off-center strikes, especially if the date is visible, worth $100, $300. Clipped planches, which can sell for $50, $150, struck on wrong planche errors, like dimes or foreign coins, which can reach into the thousands. With so many varieties, grading is critical. Collectors categorize 1982 cents not only by strike quality, but also by color. Designation, brown BN, red-brown RB or red RD. Red coins with full copper brilliance bring the highest premiums. Copper spots and zinc corrosion are common issues, making pristine examples tough to find. So what about buying tips? The first rule is education. Learn how to tell small date versus large date. The small date has a 2 with a delicate curve, and the 8 sits higher relative to the 9. Use a scale, copper cents weigh 311 grams, while zinc weigh 2.5 grams. Owning a digital scale is a must for any 1982 collector. If you're hunting, bankrolls and old coin jars are treasure troves. Many people have no idea which 1982 cents are rare. Coin shows and online auctions also offer opportunities. But stick with PCGS and NGC slabs for expensive purchases, especially if you're buying a small date copper. On the selling side, don't spend them. Even common 1982 cents in uncirculated condition can sell for a few dollars. If you think you found a rare small date copper, weigh it and then consider professional grading. A certified rare variety can bring thousands. Now a word about cleaning. This is especially important for 1982 pennies. Copper tones naturally and zinc corrodes easily. Cleaning either metal destroys value instantly. A shiny, polished coin might look appealing to beginners, but collectors and grading companies will call it cleaned or damaged, and the price drops to nearly nothing. The best approach is to preserve the coin in a safe, dry holder and let it age naturally. Historically, the 1982 cent is a symbol of change in American coinage. It marks the end of an era, the final year of the true copper penny. Collectors see it as a turning point, much like the steel cents of 1943. The fact that multiple varieties exist only adds to the excitement. To recap, the 1982 Lincoln cent exists in both copper and zinc, with 7 major varieties. The key rarity is the 1982 D small date copper, worth thousands. High-grade red examples of any variety can sell for hundreds, and certain error coins bring even more. For collectors, it's a year that offers endless challenges, education, and the thrill of treasure hunting. So the next time you check your pocket change or an old coin jar, don't dismiss a 1982 penny. What looks like just another cent might actually be a $500 gem, or even an $18,000 rarity hiding in plain sight.